All righty, everybody, welcome to another Glew
Hi,
University.
everyone.
We're going to get started in probably about 45 to 45 seconds to just about a minute. Looks like we said somebody already say hello. So if you want to let us know your name, where you're from, if you guys are an e-commerce merchant that works with Glew, love to know. It seems like we have quite a few people signed up today. I guess a lot of people are excited to talk about attribution modeling and channel mapping at Glew. So yeah, like I said, we'll get started shortly here. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing? Welcome. Hey, Ken. I am joined today by
crowd.
I realized on our slide deck we don't have our pictures on this one, so we can do our intros before we get started. Hey, Ken, awesome. Sweet, guys. Excited to have everybody. My name is Christian Olofsson. I head up client success here at Glew. And I'm sure if you attend these, you probably know who I am. But and I'm also joined today by Katie. And Katie, you can introduce yourself as well.
Hey guys, I'm Katie Roberts. I'm one of the directors of client success here at Glew. I also make quite a few appearances on these too. So it's good to see all you guys. We're excited to dig into some channel mapping and attribution model today.
All right, sweet.
I recognize some of these names here in the chat as well. So glad to have you guys.
Yeah, same. Let's go ahead. I'm going to hide my camera. It looks like it may be dragging on the Wi-Fi just a tad. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my video, and Katie, you can do the same. And then I'll actually just share my screen and we'll go through this.
I'll do the same,
here.
yeah. Cool.
All right. Fantastic. Moving right along. Okay. Fantastic. Cool. Oh, that's not the right slide. Different slide there. So this should say channel mapping. But so for today, we're doing our Glew University with a focus on channel mapping and attribution. So we're going to cover, essentially what we're going to cover is attribution modeling, the different types of models that you can use within Glew. We'll talk a little bit about channel mapping, which is effectively how we like your data to come through to Glew so we can process in a way that gives you some unique insights. So I'll go through kind of a technical blah, blah, blah about that. But yeah, so I'm going to kick it over to Katie, just kind of go through some basic definitions. And Katie, you go ahead and start. I'll go ahead and make this a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good. So first one up is going to be what is attribution modeling. So these are just going to be the rules that determine what marketing channels receive what revenue and what credit for your orders. So we know there's no perfect attribution model. There's a number of attribution models out there. So within Glew, we like to highlight two of them. So we have our default attribution model, which is going to be first order. And then the second one is going to be last click. We'll get into that a little bit. But you'll definitely notice that some of your integrations that connect within Glew or your third-party systems like Facebook have their own specific attribution models as well. We highlight the Google attribution model and the Facebook attribution model within Glew. And I'm sure we're going to go over it once we jump into the app with Christian. But we like to include all of those. But within the overview section, Christian, if you'll pop over to the next channel or the next slide, we'll talk about first order. So first order is going to be our default attribution model within Glew. Order basically tells us if I come to your store through Facebook, every order that I make from then on will be into Facebook. This is really good for kind of checking out the LTV of your channels, like what channels are really pulling in customers and keeping them with us for a long time. It's also really, really great for just kind of seeing how your customers interact from that first touch point, obviously. We're going to share these decks with you after the call as well, so you'll have all of these definitions at hand later too. And then for the next slide, Christian, last click. So last click is going to be similar to Google's attribution model. So this basically tells us wherever the customer is last clicking before each order. So if I come again to your store through Facebook the first time and I purchase, the first order will go to Facebook. And then if I purchase the second time directly, because I already know who you guys are, that second order would then be attributed to direct. So kind of breaks out each purchase, kind of tracking those different attribution or those different channels individually by each order. And then I'll throw it back over to you, Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I jump into this, I want to talk a little bit about the different attribution models at Glew and kind of the pros and cons and then the ways to use them. So as Katie mentioned, the first order attribution is an attribution model that just puts a very heavy emphasis on the original channel that engaged your customer to make a purchase, right? We're very focused in this model on the idea that, hey, this is the ad or the campaign or the channel that drove my customer to actually make a purchase. And why this is different is because it's this first order attribution, which we'll look at through the lens of lifetime value. So I'll show you a little bit later in the slide deck, where you'll find this in Glew, but I kind of want to put this in your brain throughout the webinar today on sort of the value of these different attribution models. So why is first order attribution valuable? It's because of that LTV lens. So because I'm attributing all future sales that were acquired through Facebook to Facebook, it allows me to understand the quality of a customer that I'm acquiring through Facebook, right? Because I can go in and look at an attribution model and say, okay, great, I made this much money, I made this money, cool, I'm getting conversions, great. But maybe I want to understand, hey, I'm spending $10,000 a month on Facebook. I go into Glew, I pull up my LTV on my performance overview chart, and I see that my LTV for Facebook is very mirrored to or less than my LTV of my overall store, which would be in customers' lifetime value. And I say, okay, well, why is that? Well, maybe it's because all of the customers, I'm spending a ton of money, I'm getting a ton of customers to come through Facebook, but they don't ever buy again, right? They're one-time buyers. So you're essentially spending money to get a one-time conversion, which is going to be very costly the longer you do that. So the idea is you want to spend money in places that acquire a customer that goes on to buy 2, 3, 4, several more times to become effectively like a VIP type customer. And so we use that lifetime value. So if you pop into Glew, you go to performance overview, you scroll down to that graph, you can sort by LTV. So go into your Glew store, take a look at that. And you can see within that first order lens, what's your highest LTV channel. So again, these are customers that when you do acquire through this channel, they go on to spend a lot more money. So maybe you want to invest a little bit more there, right? Because we're getting a longer term return on that ad spend. And then also on the lower end of the LTV spectrum, there's also value in understanding that data because we've already spent money, right? We've already spent money to acquire a customer, but they're not buying again, right? So now I can go to my marketing team and I can say, hey, look, we want to go look through all these LTV channels, those customers we acquired that aren't buying many, many times, and we want to hyper target them, right? So then you can go back into Glew, you can go to your customer list, and you can create a filter on that. We've done a ton of webinars on customer segments and things like that, so I'll refer back to those. But if you do ever want to take action on that in your Glew store, feel free to reach out to me. I can kind of help you through that. So that's the idea of the first order attribution, right? The goal here is we want to use this to find the right customer versus just somebody who we pay, throw a ton of ads at them, and then they finally convert, right? If we're going to spend all that money, we want those nice, cheap upsell buys, right? That's going to make that $20 we spent to acquire them, maybe a little high, but pay off in the long term. Last click is going to be a little bit of a different focus. It's going to be a much shorter term focus. Last click is going to be that last thing they clicked before they bought. And again, it's going to be the most recent buy. So I typically like to say, last click is valuable because it is very focused, again, like first order, on what is actually converting customers. Yeah, okay, maybe this ad gets somebody to know who I am or, click an ad, but nobody's buying, right? But then you finally get an ad that's like, oh, I definitely need this, right? So that's very important to understand. What is actually creating a true buying opportunity for a customer and actually driving that conversion? So that's where that last click is really valuable. I love looking at last click, especially for things like email, to see how my email is performing, versus other channels and things like that. Because a lot of times repeat buyers, they are interested to see what emails you send them. I know as a consumer, anything that's not like a, hey, advertisement email, whether it's like a weekly newsletter or a monthly, report or something like that, where you guys send some cool content outside of just like, hey, here's the products we have. I know I check those, right? So seeing conversions from that sort of type of content can be really valuable. So that's the two attribution models, kind of the power of them and how we use them. And so we're going to talk a little bit now about how do we ensure that those models are representing our sales data in the most accurate way possible. So the first thing we need to understand is, okay, well, how do we actually take an attribution model and what data do we pull in to analyze that? So this is what we're going to do is it's called channel mapping. So one of the unique things about Glew is we actually pull data from 3 different data sources for our first and last order attribution. So the first section we're going to pull data from is going to be your true order source. So whether that's Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, whatever shopping cart you're using, we're going to use that as our true order source, right? Because we want every single order that you're getting to have some sort of attribution, okay? The second place we're going to pull data from is Google Analytics. So Google Analytics will actually allow you to UTM tag. It'll track the traffic to your website, and it sends over really valuable information. So we're going to pull that channel, that conversion data from Google Analytics. And then this is where the channel mapping comes in. We then pull in your ad spend directly from those platforms. So we have Google ads, we have Facebook ads, we have Bing, we have Instagram, we have a few more on the way. And we pull that in. Now, what we want to ensure, though, is that for every order that we do attribute, whether it's for first order or last click, that sale is attributed to the right channel, right? Because we have that ad spend. We want to attribute. If it is a Facebook paid and we're paying money for Facebook paid, well, we want that order to go to Facebook paid, right? So how do we ensure that that happens? It's channel mapping. So what we use is a waterfall model. It's based on a medium and then source, right? So again, we're going to share this all with you. Really, the kind of key takeaway here is it's very flexible. Doesn't have a lot of systems are like, oh, it has to be capital F. If it's lowercase, we're going to create a new channel for that. We're flexible. We'll group things together in that way. We also will default a medium or source as a channel, even if it's not included in our model. So like, what does that mean? Let's say you have some marketing agency, or your own new person who goes in there and they start tagging all of your different ads with different source medium codes, right? And you have all these different things. Well, what we'll do is we'll actually just default those to its own channel. So like if I said Christian's cool ad group, right, is my medium, well, that's not going to match ours. So that'll actually default to its own channel. So what we'll typically do on your first call, or if you request it, we'll take a peek at those channels together and say, hey, is there an opportunity to clean some things up? We also include attribution for like non-web orders. So marketplace, draft orders, recharge. This is just Shopify only. But we'll also show you things in there too, like order sources. So when we get to the actual mapping guide, you'll see things like eBay, Walmart, Amazon. So we'll pull in those too, right? So some of those channels are going to have an attributed channel, but they will still have an order. So we want to map that too. Cool. So again, I kind of went over this, but I'm just going to quickly go through this slide. So effectively what it is it's how Glew identifies the correct source and medium and for purchases in order attributed to the correct channel. And what we use is a UTM tag to do that. So I'm going to go through UTM tags. I'm sure a lot of people know what UTM tags are, but I'm going to go ahead and explain that. So basically a UTM tagging is just a unique identifier in your URL. So if I was going to pop on Facebook right now, probably going to get a Facebook ad from maybe one of my customers here at Glew because I was checking out your website, or maybe I'm getting fed something based on some of the interests that I have, things I've dropped on the internet, that they picked up and said, hey, Christian, we think you'd like this. When I click that ad, I can typically actually just pull up my browser after I click it, and I can see this code right here. So this URL. Sometimes people use like a link system that makes it smaller, hides some things. But a lot of times you can actually just see it. So effectively what a UTM is, it's breaking out things into a source, a medium, and a campaign, right? Think of it as source is a Facebook, right? Source is who is providing this advertisement, this link. And ultimately, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Google, it's direct, it's referral. So it's going to be whatever that source is. So that's a larger grouping of a channel. Then there's going to be the medium, right? So Facebook is a great example because you have Facebook, right? You have paid ads on Facebook. And then you have organic, right? You have an organic Facebook post as well, organic Instagram posts that you may have embedded with links as well. So you need to differentiate those two. So you have paid social, right? And then you also maybe use another medium that's social or organic, right? That separates paid from organic. So a lot of our mediums in our channel mapping for paid is going to have like CPC, PPC. It's going to be paid, something along those lines. If you ever want to know how to build a UTM, you can actually do that. Google Analytics has like a basic UTM builder. So you can do a lot of these different things here. Again, we share these slides, so I just show this for you here. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about Glew's channel mapping. So you can see here, this is going to be our basic channel mapping guide. As I mentioned, we pull in ad spend. So we want to attribute the sales to the proper channel. So as I mentioned here, we have CPC Google, CPC Bing, Facebook paid, right? These are Instagram. These are all paid channels, right? If I go into my Glew account and I have this, my Google ads connected, my Bing ads connected, my Facebook connected, I'm going to see ad spend attributed with Instagram, Facebook page, CPC, Bing, and Google, right? So if I'm spending money on Google ads and somebody converts, I don't want it to go to organic search or organic social or something along those lines, right? I want it to go to paid. So when I look at my UTM tags, I want to ensure that in my medium, I have something indicating it is a paid ad, CPC, PPC, paid search, and then my source, right? It's going to be, our system is going to look at this and make sure it's not Bing, MSN, Yahoo, Gemini, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, TikTok, right? Because there's going to be a million different sources. So if we do an is not Google, it's going to be the fastest way to accommodate that. So you'll see if it is Google, so it'll be Google as the source, paid search, boom, it's going into CPC Google. And then your campaign, we don't have listed here. So campaign is actually just going to be displayed in Glew. And actually you can just go in and compare campaigns and things like that. So I'll quickly show that at the end of the call. You can come down here to social as well, right? These are organic social channels. We're not typically paying for these. And you can see this is social network, social media, SM, spaces and different things like that. And then the source is going to still be Facebook, right? But it's different because it's Facebook social versus CPC or right here. Let's do like paid social Facebook, right? So you can see how this is Facebook paid social, Facebook social, right? So if I go in here and tag my social links and my paid links are the same, then your social ads are going to go up in here. So you may see some inflated Facebook numbers, right? Because we haven't differentiated the two channels from each other. So I'll list those all here. So this is very important. Obviously, this is going to give you very clean data at Glew. We effectively match very similar to what a lot of systems actually default tag. So you won't typically have to change too much. A lot of times where I see people veer off the track is when, as I mentioned, like you'll get somebody in there who starts getting a little bit off the typical way that you're tagging ads. And then you have a lot of like wild channels. Now that may be fine for your instances, but if you want to use the valuable insights of like ROAS and customer acquisition costs and things like that in Glew, we do recommend that you follow our channel mapping guide. But again, it is very consistent with most UTM tags, if not all. This is our Shopify specific. So as I mentioned, we do pull in some additional channel groupings. So you'll see like Facebook Marketplace, Google Marketplace, Amazon Recharge, Shopify draft orders, POS, Returnly, and some other ones here. I won't go through all of those. And this is for BigCommerce specific, right? This is pretty big. We got Recharge in here now, Amazon Marketplace, Order Groove, Walmart, and eBay. All right. So that's all fine and well. Your UTM tags are set up. I understand how to value first order attribution and last click. I'm ready to go conquer the world. And I jump into my Glew account and all my data is unavailable. And I say, no, what the heck's going on? So this is a very common thing. And I'll quickly explain what unavailable data is and then what we need to do to fix it. So all unavailable data is that we're actually not getting a transaction information from Google Analytics. And it can be a few different things. So what we'll want to do, first say, okay, we're seeing unknown available channel. We're seeing duplicate channels, or you think your channel data may be off, right? Well, if you're duplicating channels, you need to look at your UTM tagging. If your channel data might be off, we may want to just do like a quick resync of the data, make sure it's all fresh and clean. Typically, you don't need to do that, but that's also something we would consider. But we want to check these boxes. So do you have your enhanced e-commerce turned on? If you say no, go turn it on, right? That's very easy. Do you have the correct accounts and views synced? So within Glew, you can select different Google Analytics accounts. A lot of times people say, hey, Christian, my data is all unavailable. What's going on? We go in there, their ad agency is using their Google Analytics account, and they have somebody else's GA connected, right? Well, it's not going to affect the Glew data. Like, we're not going to see any of that data because they're not going to match, right? So we're not going to be able to merge that data because it's not in the back end aligned. So ensure that you have your correct Google Analytics that's actually mirroring your Google Analytics that you're using to connect to your Shopify and your actual storefront. Also, make sure Google Analytics is connected. You'd be surprised how often people sign up, they pump all their Shopify data in there, their Google ads, their Facebook ads, and they don't scroll all the way down to Google Analytics. So make sure Google Analytics is connected. If you look into your Google Analytics and you notice there's going to be a sync date, you want to make sure that's probably within the last few hours of today's date. If you see that that's behind, just click into it and ensure that it's still connected. Maybe somebody changed your password or something like that. Typically, the system will notify you if that does happen, but it's always just that's like the final fail-safe. And then make sure your UTM parameters are set up, right? We want to make sure we're tagging things, so we are pulling in that data. And then the last and probably the most common one we see is to ensure that you're passing the correct order identifier from your e-commerce platform. So we want to make sure in Shopify it's order name, and in BigCommerce it's order ID, right? If you follow these instructions, you're still struggling with unavailable data, that's why you have your lovely CS team. We can help you through that. Cool. I'm going to quickly pull up these actual sections here in the Glew platform, and we'll go through them one by one. So I just want to make sure I got it. Okay, cool. So we're going to go to our demo store. So if you want to follow along, what we're going to do here is we're going to actually pull up all the different attribution models that we have in Glew. So the first place we're going to start is performance. Performance, you're going to have overview and advertising. Advertising, I'll go through quickly. This is going to be when Katie mentioned we do pull in other attribution models that are not just Glew. We pull in Facebook attribution, and we also pull in Google ads. So you can see here, ad spend versus revenue, get your ROAS, your cost per click, your click-through rate and conversion rate. You can see this on the campaign, ad set, and then ad level as well. Okay. Same for Google. Oh, I forgot our store doesn't have that. Google ads do look very similar to this. On the top right, though, you're going to have a revenue for Google ads. So take a peek at that. In your Glew store, if you have Google ads connected, you will see it. This demo store is a little outdated. So again, these are attribution models that we are not creating on our own. We're actually pulling these directly from a platform. So you can actually pop in here and compare your Facebook revenue to your Google ads revenue against each other and see, hey, what are they promising us, right? Performance overview is where the Glew action is happening, right? I mentioned we have revenue by channel. You'll see this drop down here. This is how you decide which attribution you're looking at. Last click. I want to take a peek at that, and I can see that here. And then we have the net profit by channel, right? So that first order versus last click. As I mentioned, right, in the other performance advertising section, you can see, you can compare, you could throw a report together. If you're not so familiar with Glew, if you are, then you probably know what I'm talking about. But you can click these three little dots, and maybe I want to say, all right, I want to see my Facebook. I want to see my first order. I want to see my Facebook attribution. And I say, instead of add to a new, I say add to existing. You can tell we've done maybe a few of these trainings before. And then I also say, hey, you know what? I want to see last click too, right? I click save. I go add this to existing. if in your account, you probably won't have 6,000 reports. And then I can actually come in here into my new report I've just created. And I can say, hey, this is my comparative report. I want to see, compare models. Let's keep it short. R, compare. Okay. Cool, right? So I can pop in here and say, okay, first order saying this is my net profit. Facebook is saying this is my revenue. How does that compare? Okay, it's a little bit less. So maybe Facebook's overpromising. You can have that, and then you have your last click too, right? So you can actually put these all in one report, put it in my reports, and then you can action it from there. Now, again, the idea here is in Glew, we want to take away this, these ad platforms' ability to just tell you without any kind of they can just say, hey, this is how much money we made you, right? And typically what happens is let's say you're using Facebook, you're using Google, you're using an email system, you're using texting, all the different ad platforms you're using are all telling you, hey, we made this much money, we made you this much money. You say, great, look at all this revenue we made. You add it up, and it's 5 times as much money as you actually made, right? Well, that's going to be really frustrating because somebody is lying to you or you're getting misattributed. Because everybody just wants you to pay them more money. Hey, we made you this money, spend more money with us. So this is kind of the idea here, is that every dollar made is going to one place, right? So again, we talked about the use cases here, but for navigation, this is where it is in Glew. You can also access this under the lifetime value tab. This is going to give you more profitability metrics here. You'll see things like ROAS, lifetime ROAS, LTV over CAC, and then customer acquisition cost, profit per customer, and then lifetime value again here. These are great just to see how they're performing, the money that you are spending versus the money that you're making. Again, this is a demo account, right? In your account, your organic search is not going to have ad spend. We don't spend money on organic search, but you will have, Instagram money, Facebook money, and you can see ROAS from those, right? That goes back to that importance of that channel mapping. We want to make sure those orders are getting channeled, mapped to the right place. In addition, in order list, you can also see this data here. You can pull up your different channels if you want to see that on an order level. For higher view analysis, though, typically you're going to want to use these lifetime value and performance overview sections. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second so I can pull up one more account. While I'm doing this, Katie, do we have any questions yet?
Not any yet, but if anyone has any questions, definitely put them in the chat box so we can get to them towards the end of the webinar today.
Okay, cool. Let me start sharing again. Okay, sweet. So in addition to channel data, you can also, this is a completely dead dummy store. I'm just showing you this for the filters. So what you can actually do also is create customer cohorts on the basis of channel acquisition, right? So I had mentioned maybe you want to take a look at your last click channel is email, right? You could come in here, you could say is select email. Maybe you're interested in a specific campaign. How is that performing? You could come in here, you could say last click channel is, it'll actually have a drop down so you could pick your specific campaign. Because maybe you're you're advertising an email campaign, you're putting in a black dress, you click into this, you create this list, and then when I actually go into my segment details in Glew, one of the sections that we do have is products purchased. So you can actually take a peek and say, let me see how my campaign is performing, right? I can see my segment KPIs like orders, customers, LTV. But I can also come down here and see the actual products that they purchased, right? So if I'm advertising, again, sorry, there's no data in here, but maybe I'm advertising the black dress and everybody's coming to my website and buying the white dress. Okay, well, what is that telling me? Well, maybe that ad set's converting, it's drawing business, but it could probably be performing better because what people are doing is they're intrigued by this dress. They're going to the website and they say, well, I like the white dress better, right? So we want to ensure that we're making the least amount of clicks to a purchase as possible. So that's just like a quick little insight that you can use as well. And then in addition here, if you want to compare like campaigns to campaigns, you can click into any of these. Like if I go to Facebook paid, I can see my different sources, and then you can see your like campaigns against each other as well. So yeah, all right. That is it as far as the overall portion goes on the, I can bring my camera back up here. So again, the different attribution models we have in Glew, key takeaways, channel mapping, ensuring that, your UTM tags are effectively set up in a way to make the most of our valuable data that we're able to pull into one place and blend it together. And then the secondary piece is the data quality, which is ensuring that we are following our enhanced e-commerce tracking is on. If you do have a ton of unavailable data, taking a peek at that. I think that's it on stuff I wanted to cover. I'm just trying to make sure there's a lot to unpack, so I just want to ensure. Maybe the only other thing I will show, since I got through that a little bit quicker than I was expecting, is actually going to be one thing to just take a peek at. If you do ever notice your data is unavailable, what I would highly recommend you doing is this is like troubleshooting 101. You're going to come in here, you're going to pin last click channel, and then you are going to ensure that your order number is also pinned, okay? And what I'm going to look for here is if you notice that your unavailable data, the order number is different than anything that you do have data with, that typically means that you have something that you need to update. You're not passing over the order name if you're on Shopify. So you may need to update that. In addition, keep an eye on the order source too, right? So if you have a processing company that does something outside of your e-commerce store, so it breaks the UTM tag, so you're no longer able to see that, you'll also probably be able to see a consistent trend on your unavailable data in the order source as well. So kind of like the first thing to check, pin that last tick channel so we can see that unavailable if it does pop up, confirm the order numbers are consistent, and then check order source. If all of that is, there's no like consistency there, it may be that those unavailable data is just people blocking their cookies, right? They're not being able to be tracked. But for the most part, if you come into your performance overview and the percentage of unavailable data is like under 10%, that's probably only people that are blocking, or in the off chance you may have some website that's promoting you that isn't tagging you. So you could take a peek at those orders too, as well, and the order list. All right, cool. Any questions for us here? I know we covered a good bit, but or maybe that was super informative and you guys have no questions. Katie, you want to come back on? I can bring your video back up. All right, we got a question here. I was looking at my advertising performance with Google Ads and noticed that it stopped tracking on August 11th. So the first thing that you would want to do is ensure that your Google Ads is still connected. If it is not, if you click into it and you see an error message, typically all you have to do is remove it and reconnect it. It's kind of like when your cable goes out, sometimes you got to plug it in, plug it back out. And then once that's done, the system will actually just like resync the data and bring it back online. If you notice that there is any lapse, just send a quick note to support@glew.io. And since it's only like 10 days, we can just run a quick, what we call is like a daily sync, which just brings the data back up to speed. And that was a question by Lawrence. Thanks, Oscar. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's our goal here. We hope these are insightful and helpful. As much as we like to hear ourselves talk. Well, cool. I'll give like maybe 30 seconds for a couple more questions. If there aren't any, don't feel like you lost your opportunity. Our support line is always open. So you can email support@glew.io with your questions. Just let us know your store, what your question is, and if you have any like useful screenshots that would kind of give us a head start. That's
including the date range.
Yeah, and what date range you're looking at. That is a good call there. Well, fantastic. All right, I don't see any more questions, so we'll end a little bit early today. Our next Glew University will be just a basic 101 as always at the beginning of the month, and then we're actually going to do a focus on Black Friday in September. So I would definitely jump on that one. We'll talk about ways to use Glew to optimize some of those strategies. So thanks, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.